wants to kill me so bad he can taste it.
I'm always gonna kill anybody.
Attica! Attica!
What are you
Attica! 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 Remember Attica! Go ahead! Go ahead! Throw up! Just put it on fucking back!
No, come on.
Look away, Dixieland, 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 Dixieland.
All right, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to Dixieland the Proletariat. We're going to talk about Southern working class history and current events through a leftist perspective. Make sure to like us on social media at Dixieland the Proletariat or Dixie Prole. And if you want to give your wages to a bunch of rednecks, and subscribe to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Dixie Prole. Got a lot of cool stuff to give you, including CDs, stickers, and a cookbook. We also have a Spotify playlist with some great artists you also check out. The podcast is brought to you by Camel Silvers, Black Cherry Bubbly, and Vaping. Shout out to our new Patreon subscriber, Courtney. Our monthly Patreon surplus goes to groups that are run by and or help marginalized people directly. As always, I'm Nelson with Tommy and Tyler, and our guest this evening is Swift Justice. How's everybody doing?
And I'm fine, man. I appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Good.
All right, y'all. Swift Justice, real quick, if you could just tell us about yourself, what all you're at liberty to say about yourself, and just give us, like, you know, what you can.
Man, my name is Swift Justice. Actually, that's the pseudonym that was given me some years ago as I started my journey into the prison actions and the prison revolution is what we call it. But my original name is Shaun, and I'm in the Alabama Department of Corrections right now, and what I do is I fight for, true change, and not only inside of the Alabama Department of Corrections, but also, change in the way society sees those who are incarcerated, especially right here in the state of Alabama.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for. I know you've been hesitant before to give out your name, so man, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Actually, that's kind of funny because I actually just now joined my real name with the pseudonym. For years, I just went with a pseudonym. And for years, man, this is the truth. This is not about me. So, I don't never focus on, who I am, because it's not about me. I don't want to spotlight. I don't even want nobody to even actually say, hey, Shaun, great work you're doing. I could care less about any of that, because the way I look at it is I represent all those who are in prison in the state of Alabama, and at least I try to, and I try to represent them good, and tell the public and tell people, what's going on here without any kind of bias or prejudice towards anybody.
Hell yeah, man. That's awesome. Well, like I said, we all really appreciate what you're doing. And so we're just going to jump right in. Could you briefly, I guess, describe the conditions that they have y'all housed in? I know Alabama is some of the worst when it comes to the prison system and the incarceration rate and how we treat people in the prison system. But you can read it in articles and you can even watch documentaries, but I feel like they definitely glance over a lot of stuff. So could you just give us like a firsthand account of the conditions that y'all are under?
I don't think anybody could have described it any better than Judge Myron Thomas did, during the hearings and during the trial of Bragg versus Dunn. He described it as horrendous, and that's the truth. If you're looking for the definition of horrendous, from my point of view, you got 100 men in a dorm that's built for 40. So if you can even imagine what the conditions would be with 100 plus men in a dormitory or a spot that's only built for half of that or even less than half of that, the conditions are going to be horrendous, like as he says. I've actually seen where people have gone to jail for treating dogs and animals in better conditions, for real. They've gone to jail for how they treated them, caged up the way they were, and sanitation wise. But one thing about it is it's a wide known fact that people look at us as less than dogs. So it's not something that people really care about.
When you say like horrible conditions, just to break it down for people who may not understand and may not, have too much light into what goes on in prisons. Like from what I understand, like you say 100 men in a system built for 40. So I would imagine that means in like a 2-man cell, 3 or 4 people in there sharing a cell.
Actually, the state of Alabama, very few prisons have cells, or 1-man cells or 2-man cells, unless they're solitary confinement cells, or prisons such as Donaldson or St. Clair or Limestone. They do have cells there, but majority of the prisons inside of the state of Alabama were built, nearly 100 years ago, 60 years ago, 50 years ago, and they're open dormitories. Now, these dormitories were built to house a capacity of anywhere between 40 to 70 inmates. When I was at Home Correctional Facility, those dorms over there were built for 72 inmates, and they crammed in there anywhere between 120, 130 people inside those dorms. So, according to federal law, you're supposed to have so much space. Each man's allotted so much space. But here in these prison systems now, or in the state prison facilities, they're so cram-packed full that these men, and myself included, we only have just a couple of feet, if that, in between beds. So I can literally roll over on my bed and touch the guy next to me.
So as far as regulations, why, in your opinion, do you think that they are allowed to get? Are there people that come in and inspect these things? Is there a government body that comes in and say, hey, these conditions aren't livable? Like, what happens in these situations?
Of course, people come in and inspect it. But the thing about it is, you got to understand the people who do come in and inspect these prisons. You take, for instance, the health department. The health department in the state of Alabama is a state agency. So, these are state employees. Why in the world would they turn around and say, okay, no, y'all got these beds too close. Y'all got too many people inside these dorms? Because, when you get done said with it, you are not going to want to sit there and step on the toes of a brother or sister agency. So, they're just going to overlook it and not even say anything about it. It's just like I see inside these kitchens, many occasions, man, they score these kitchens 70, 80, 90. When in all actuality, I've seen cleaner kitchens in the free world, such as Burger King and McDonald's, that are failing, and they're in a whole lot better conditions than what these prisons kitchens are. So, here it is. Unless you run across that one person who's working for the state who actually really wants to do their job, and there's not going to be many of those individuals. So, it's not. They're going to cover their brother and sister agency's ass. So.
Oh man, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just like with these agencies that they don't want to step on anyone, like a fellow state agency's toes. So they just let shit go by. And then obviously, like you said before, like people tend to view incarcerated individuals as less than human, and it's a horrible thing that like it's in the Constitution that we no cruel and unusual punishment, but it seems like what's going on now is exactly cruel and unusual punishment.
I mean, well, you got to look at the way Americans think anyhow. We Americans, we condone other countries for the things that they do to their people. But yet at the same time, in our own country, we do that to our own people. So, America's is full of hypocrites. And, I don't know any other way to explain that. I mean, if you're not with the good old boys, if you're not, if you don't have plenty of money, if you're not part of the 1%, I mean, it doesn't matter what happens to you. It doesn't matter. And then once you're thrown behind these walls onto these plantations, then they're making somebody else some money, a whole lot of money, by being placed up in here. So nobody's gonna come in there and start stepping on the people's pockets. And it's just something that people, our taxpayers. You look at the taxpayers. Taxpayers ignore it. Taxpayers don't even realize that. To my opinion, taxpayers pay the taxes so they don't have to deal and don't have to see what's going on inside these prisons. In the state of Alabama, I've seen it so many times when I looked at articles where, a comrade has been killed or, died. You see comments that's all over these articles, man. Well, they should have thought about this before they did the crime. So now they just do the time. It doesn't matter. They're there. So, that's just the way the mentality of, people, especially in the Deep South, is. And that's something that we, especially me, that's what I would love to actually, I'd like to see that mind frame turn around, because not only is it people that have been here, these people's lives are important, but I'm actually looking at the children who will be forced to come and follow in our footsteps years from down the road. I would not want my son, my daughter, I wouldn't want your son and your daughter to have to go through these things that's going on in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with you. Americans have such a weird, perverse sense of justice, I think, where it's this eye for an eye mentality that people have. And our prison systems are not built to rehabilitate. They are built to just hold you there and just do your time. There's no education. There's no way to better yourself, and that's why we have such a high recidivism rate, because we do not take that time, this money to help reform and rehabilitate people rather than just lock them up.
I agree with that 100%, but you have to ask the next question behind that is, why is that system, why is that mind thought, why is that train of thinking in effect, and why has it not been addressed beforehand? And, you can go all the way back to 1865, and, that's something that we are big time on, is the slavery clause and the exception clause in the 13th Amendment. It was meant, people say that the system is broken, and I turn around and I argue that point. The system is not broken. The system is working exactly the way it was designed. And it was designed to actually imprison individuals for their monetary value, to re-enslave individuals. And, at that focal point in that time period of 1865, that was back to enslave the slaves who had been freed. But over the time, it has evolved itself, and no, it doesn't necessarily have a color boundary anymore. Although you can bet one thing, that the black community inside of the state of Alabama is drastically affected, more so than any other community, because for the simple fact is, majority of the black community is poverty, especially in the state of Alabama. So now you are actually re-enslaving people back into slavery all through the system, and why? And it's for the monetary value.
I definitely agree, and I know my co-hosts definitely agree with that. We hear all the time about the prison industrial complex and how modern prison is just modern day slavery. And the amount of money that state and private prisons make in profit off the backs of inmates for just pennies on the dollar. And I want to get to that later, but real quick, I have some notes jotted down because I read the articles that you sent me. So could you just talk not briefly, but could you just talk about the Free Alabama movement and your organization, Unheard Voice of Concrete Jungle? Could you talk about who, what, where, and what are some of y'all's goals?
Sure, man. The Free Alabama movement is the foundation of the prison movement here in the state of Alabama. And, I salute all three of the comrades who founded that right here in the prisons in Alabama. Robert Earl Council, Melvin Ray, and Alameen, which is James Pleasant, of the original founders of that, man. And they actually set the model, and I believe with all my heart they set the model not only here in Alabama on how to actually expose these things and actually combat these things on a peaceful level, but they educated me to the point of where I was so dumbfounded to what was going on, and I'm sitting inside these prisons, and I was just like a whole shitload of these dudes in here, didn't know what was going on, didn't know how important it was to actually pay attention to what they were teaching. And I give credit to Robert Earl Council, man, Kinetic Justice. He actually turned me into who I am today, and gave me a time and a place to actually be able to be a voice in this. And that inspired me to actually start Unheard Voices OTCJ, which I founded a few years back. And as I mentioned before, one of the things that really inspires me to keep doing what I'm doing is because I'm not just fighting for me and these guys' rights that I'm surrounded by, man. I'm actually fighting for the children who have incarcerated parents, because 7 out of 10 of those children will follow in the parents' footsteps. That's statistics, and it's hard to argue statistics. And that's what statistics show, that 7 out of 10 children will follow into the footsteps of the parent, unless we actually make a true change and to bring true rehabilitation in and start educating not only the parents but the children as well. You know, and that's something that just really confuses me in the state of Alabama. We have a governor who come in and behind, upbringing in education, and she is not funding the education, but she's willing to spend billions of dollars in prisons. So in essence, basically what that's telling me is we have a governor right now in the seat in Alabama that is actually preparing for our children's future, but she's doing so by preparing for these prisons.
I think like her agenda now, she wants to build more like bigger prisons, like private prisons. She wants to get the industry like really. She thinks the problem is more like just repeating the cycle and just wanting to incarcerate more people.
There's no doubt about it. There truly is no doubt about that. She's not. I'm not going to sit there and say that that's her agenda. I will say that she adopted Bentley's agenda, and you know, it's deeper than K.I.V. It's deeper than any governor. I mean, you've got the same mentality in there because we've had the same senators and same representatives in office in the state of Alabama for so long. You know, you got senators and House of Representatives who've been in these positions for 30 and 40 years, and that's the same mind frame that they have. And until we remove those from in the voting blocks, we're not going to see much change.
I definitely agree. So I was reading in the articles more about how y'all promote nonviolence in peaceful organizing. I just want to say, like, why was that tactic chosen, and what does that mean? And I know that the prison riots at Attica back in New York back in the day were referenced, and I just want to see like what came about. Like, is that just an older tactic, and then like, you know, we just fake these at a peaceful and nonviolent way is the way to go, just less retribution? Or could you just speak on that more?
You know, I think there's definitely a connection with Attica in 1971. The brothers in Attica actually started their protest and their what they were doing there in New York in a peaceful manner. And it actually got turned violent, and blood flooded the waters. And that was a very unfortunate incident. But one of the things that I have taken note of is that the public does not care to hear our voice when we are doing nonviolent protests and we're being peaceful. It's easier to ignore. And one of the reasons being is because when you get done instead with it, the media actually controls what comes in and what comes out of these prisons. They're not, and Alabama is very, very, very slow on actually talking about what's taking place inside these prisons, especially the local media. We have one of the hardest problems getting the media's attention. Very few journalists have reported, you know, our side, and from a non-biased side, that, you know, our side as well as Alabama Department of Corrections side of what takes place. They take what the commissioner or the commissioner spokesperson says and they run with it. And that's it. But yet at the same time, many outside media networks have, you know, come to us. But, you know, that's not, these outside media networks, these outside states, there's not much that they can do about the Alabama prison system because it's not their state. So, you know, that's really not effective. One of the things that we want to avoid is we want to avoid the 1971 bloodshed. We don't want to see that because a lot of men and a lot of men on both sides died that day. And one thing that I do know, and I'm a true believer in history repeats itself. And does it have to repeat itself in New York? No, because when you look at that, and when you look back at Attica's, the comrades in Attica, their demands, they pretty much mirror the same demands that we have today. And, you know, that's really sad if we still have to fight for something 55 years later down the road to actually get changed, you know. And a lot of the things that happened, you know, that was asked for in Attica, you know, they did change these things. New York has one of the better prison systems. I mean, I'm not going to say it's very good at all because I have comrades that I know in New York. You know, they still have to deal with issues up there, but they have evolved in certain aspects. They're a lot farther along than Alabama is, that's for sure.
definitely, I agree. I know there's a push to close Rikers Island in New York City itself. My family's from New York City, and just knowing a bit about that and how fucking crazy it is, and how horrible that prison that jail is, the Rikers Island. So I think they finally are getting around to it. If they've even closed it or not, I'm not sure.
Man, you know, that's one thing I can say about the comrades on the outside organizing tip in New York and in, you know, the area of Philadelphia and those areas, man. They are boots on the ground out there, and they are ready to rock and roll when it comes to dealing with the injustices taking place behind these walls. You know, and that's something that I love to see here in Alabama, and I do see it, you know, every day it's growing. We have comrades on the outside. You know, many comrades have come up in Huntsville, and, you know, they're awesome. The underground protest crew and the Huntsville Bells funds, you know, they have really showed up and showed out when they come to these areas where they need to actually voice for us. And, you know, we were very much grateful for what they are doing.
That flows perfectly into my next question, because I was going to ask, like, what's the support on the outside? I was reading today were protests outside, 20 different protests outside of prisons in Alabama. But what's going on the outside? What support have y'all seen?
Man, we see all kinds of support, man. But, you know, there's never going to be enough support. There's never going to be enough people, boots on the ground, until we have all of Alabama boots to the ground, and that has a problem with a crime against humanity. You know, this isn't just a human rights issue, man. This is a crime against humanity. It really is. And not only that, man, what's taking place is, until people out there understand that they're creating these monsters, they're creating the monster that's in me. And I'm going to talk about me, man. When I sit up in here under these conditions, man, and then I'm released, because 95% of us will be released one day back to society. So people in Alabama are going to have to realize, hey, man, if I get back out and I do some real stupid ass shit, such as Jimmy O'Neal Spencer, you created that because you allow for what's going on to be going on inside of the state of Alabama prisons. I mean, you got one of the smallest prison systems in the United States of America, but yet at the same time, it's the most violent prison system in the United States. And if Alabama prisons, if the America's prison systems is the worst in the world, that means Alabama prison system is the worst in the world. What's that say about Alabama, man? We have to be able to really change the way we think about these guys when they come in, and rehabilitation must start from day one that they walk through these gates, and it must continue after that, man. And I think the society in Alabama, they really have to understand what it really truly means to rehabilitate somebody. I mean, when you look at the word rehabilitate from a medical standpoint, if I fall down and I break my hip right now, and I go back through, and I have to go through physical rehab, the purpose of physical rehab is to get me back to the condition I was before I fell and broke my hip. But you're not doing that with these guys you're releasing into society today. You're sending them back out there in the streets. They have no money. Some of these guys have no family. So now they have nothing, and they damn sure can't have any voting rights. They damn sure can't go get a job working as a firefighter, a police officer. They can't get into the military. They can't even go to college to become a lawyer if that's what they wanted to do. So how in the world are you truly rehabilitating these individuals in here if they're coming out of here worse off than they was when they were out there?
I think that's the best metaphor I've ever heard about rehabilitation in prison was your hip analogy. Like that hit the nail on the head. I never thought of it that way, but that's a beautiful way of putting it. That was definitely spot on. Like, that was great. Thank you.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
So I wanted to get in on the topic of what's going on the inside. So I see it like there's organizing strikes and boycotts, but like when people think of strikes and boycotts on the outside, they think like, don't shop at Amazon or don't go to Walmart, or let's organize a union at our workplace. But like, how do strikes and boycotts work on the inside? Is it just trying to deprive the prison industrial complex of profits? Like, could you explain more on that?
Sure, man. First and foremost, one of the biggest industries we do know of is the Alabama Department of Corrections itself. Each one of these guys who have a job that they're assigned to inside these prison systems, such as, I don't care if it's mopping the floor in the hallway or mopping and cleaning the dorms. The Constitution states that they have to provide three main things for us, and one of those things is food. Another one of those things is clothing, and the third thing is a clean and sanitary environment. That's all they have to provide us, those three things. And in order to have those three things, they actually have to have bodies to actually produce what needs to be produced in order to keep those three things functioning according to the Constitution. You have to have inmates inside these kitchens. You have to have inmates cleaning these hallways and cleaning these dorms. You have to have inmates do every function of the Department of Corrections in Alabama, and not just in Alabama, but anywhere in the United States. It's functioned by the inmate labor. The only thing any correctional officer has to do is secure this, and then they have to keep the public safe from us and us safe from the public. That's it. So every aspect of the prison, whether it's chow hall, whether it's food, whether it's commissary, whether it's cleaning up, whatever, is actually a labor job. So now, if we shut down and we don't do these things, they still have to provide us with these things. So now they're going to have to do it themselves. Now what you're doing is you're actually costing the state money. And so in essence, by us doing what we're doing in these institution jobs, we're actually saving the state millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. And we're getting nothing for it, or we're getting cents on the dollar for it. Now you got HCI jobs inside of Alabama, which is, the tag plant, the print shop, the chemical plant, the sewing plant, and so on and so on. So if these are also jobs that they're paying, just pennies on a dollar to inmates. I think I've heard guys say they've worked on these jobs for 20 years and they're not making no more than 75 cents an hour. So these are multi-million-dollar money-making functions. So if we shut these down as well, now what you're doing is you are actually disrupting the economical exchange and the economical gain for the Department of Corrections, not only the Department of Corrections, but the government of Alabama and those senators or whoever it is who's pocketing all this money. And one thing that we have learned over the years, and I've learned through, being inside the prisons, is, we can riot all day long, man. We can kill each other. We can kill the guards and all this and that. But one thing I do know is by tomorrow they're going to have new inmates and they're going to have new guards. And they're going to be functioning the same way they was the day before that. And of course, the media is going to blow up. Yeah, these animals are acting like animals over here. That's expected of them. So we don't have too high expectations. But yet at the same time, when we are peaceful, we're showing the public that, hey, we have common sense, we have brains, and we are also men. We're not the animals that you stigmatize us as. And what we're doing is we're trying to show you that not only are we smart, but we're able to be peaceful and smart.
One of the things that I've heard, I think in California with the firefighters and fighting the wildfires, they're having inmates out there for like making $1 or $2 an hour fighting these fires, and then afterwards, when they get released, they can't find jobs as firefighters because they have a felony record. So it's just crazy. Like, is that something that I know you spoke about this earlier, but is that something you've seen in Alabama where like you have someone that learns a skill basically in prison but cannot transfer that to the outside world because of their record?
Of course, man. That's no doubt. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I followed for years and I actually helped push against. And just recently, the governor in California allowed he actually made it legal for individuals who were inmate firefighters to actually be able to get out and proceed in that line of work. And I think that was the best thing that governor could ever do, because now you've given this individual here their humanity back. Because now not only are they good enough to actually fight these fires and save people's homes and even save people's lives while they're inmates, but now the governor is saying, you know what? what? You did society such a good thing while you was incarcerated, man. We're not going to rob you from that. And we trusted you to do this while you were inmates. Why couldn't we not trust you to do this as an ex-convict or an ex-slave? So, you know, I actually salute the governor who did that, man. I really do.
Definitely. That I can't even imagine like having to like risk your life to save a society that doesn't give a shit about you. All like when you get out, they say you can't do the thing that you were actually trained to do. I'm glad that Governor Newsom in California definitely did that. That was one good thing he did for sure. Going back to the peaceful organizing and the nonviolence, I was reading about hunger strikes that are going on in the Alabama prison system. I know that historically hunger strikes have been a tool. I know the IRA used them for when they were incarcerated in Northern Ireland, and it's also in the United States. It's also been a nonviolent tool that inmates have used. But can you speak on like the recent actions of that and like the effectiveness of hunger strikes in the Alabama prison system?
Well, man, I'm going to be honest with you, man. The hunger strikes in anywhere in the United States is pretty much a tool that when you get done and said with it, man, it's the last resort of anything that we ever want to do, because and just like any other American, because, you know, America is obese pretty much, and we love to eat. Even behind these walls, we love to eat. But the thing about it is that's the last tool. So, you know, I really salute the comrades that are actually on these hunger strikes, because the simple fact is not many people really pay that attention. It's kind of like a peaceful thing. They're actually participating in the hunger strikes just to do their part for the strike. And you know, that is so much solidarity, man. And like I said, I salute these guys for doing what they're doing on that aspect. But does it get the attention? Of course not. It doesn't get the attention that it needs to get. And the reason why it doesn't get that attention, because unless, of course, it's like right now, where we are able to publicize these guys and their names and get the support from the outside people and the media, it amounts to nothing. Nobody ever finds out about it. Nobody knows about it. So, you know, that's one of the things that we are grateful for, that we're able to get the media's attention with it and, you know, put these press releases out and say this. And, you know, sometimes these networks do pick up on it. It's not something that's picked up on very much. Don't get me wrong. You know, anytime I do go on a hunger strike or Connecticut goes on a hunger strike, man, we get all kinds of press attention. But why? Why? Because we have a platform, and I think that's so wrong, man. If Joe Blow back there goes on a hunger strike, he has an issue, and then, you know, it says a lot for a man to sacrifice the one thing that we need to live on, and that's food. He's going to sacrifice his food, the very one essential that he needs to survive, just to get the attention of somebody. And in the state of Alabama, we have no grievance system in the Department of Corrections, and this is his only way to do anything other than actually hurting himself, you know, yelling suicide or whatnot, whatever it might be, or actually turning violent. But yet at the same time, the Department of Corrections is going to try to strip that away from you and keep it as quiet as possible as well. I have seen on occasions, even with me, they wouldn't even keep the medical records and keep any kind of paperwork while I was on a hunger strike, just to sit there and say, well, no, he's not on a hunger strike. You know, and that's the sad thing about the Department of Corrections, man. It is so confined and sealed with an iron curtain that nobody can actually find out anything of what's going on. They literally believe if they call down to the commissioner's office and say, hey, is this going on? And they say, oh, no, it's not going on. But yet at the same time, it really is going on.
That leads into another thing that I definitely wanted to ask you about was what is the pushback been? What's the retaliation been? Not just to you personally, and then to the other inmates involved, like from the guards, maybe other inmates. Like what has been the blowback from all of this?
Well, the major blowback is always, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm not ashamed to say it, man, the biggest blowback is our own comrades. That is our biggest obstacle. just getting these guys to see that this is something worth doing. This is your life. You need to actually fight for it. And nobody's going to fight for it harder than you're going to fight for it yourself. But the blowback when it comes to organizers such as myself or Robert Earl or Melvin Ray, we catch anybody who tries to step up in a leadership position. It's just like at this prison that I'm at right now. The day before the strike actually started, officers came in and made an example out of a couple of guys by beating on them. And, they put them in lockup and said that, hey, y'all are trying to insider riot and all this and that. And these terminology they use, like I said, it's just their word against ours. And they're going to sit there whether it's inciting the riot. Now, the public's going to believe that. Because why? Because we're already stigmatized as animals. And it's easy to push that way. Disciplinaries. Disciplinaries is another way that they do that. They write disciplinaries, and that's an in-house thing. Of course, it's hard to even fight these things. Placement in lockup. Just locking the prisons down and not letting them get any kind of air whatsoever, and just leaving them crammed inside these dorms. And then they intentionally push issues, not issues, but push incidents to actually agitate the guys on the inside to actually make them break out in violence or whatnot, just so that they can have an excuse to do what they so-called claim is justifiable assaults or whatever.
That brings me to my next thing. I was reading about something that happened at Limestone called the bucket detail. What was bucket detail? I know it caused a ton of controversy and ended a practice that was about 2.5 decades long, and then it cost the warden their job. Like, could you just explain to us and to the people that are going to listen what bucket detail was, if you know anything about that?
Sure, I do. I was actually involved in exposing that. Me and Robert Earl both were. The bucket detail, and for the record, they haven't stopped it. They're continuously doing it still today. But anyhow, and what happens is different prisons all over the United States use different tactics of actually stopping contraband from coming inside the prison. So one of the things that they do is they actually, if you're known to or suspected to have drugs inside of your anal area, whatever, you done swallowed it, whatever. What they'll do is they'll actually place you in what they call a dry cell and make you take a shit, for the most part, 2 or 3 shits, and empty out your bowels, and either recover the drugs that they were suspected that were in you, or see if the suspicion was actually true. So it's just a way that they try to actually control some of the contraband. But the deal at Limestone went way above that, man. It became a torture. And it wasn't even under suspicion of contraband. It was just some sadistic-ass officers and leaders at the Limestone. They didn't like you. Okay, we're going to throw you in this cell. But this is what Limestone did. Limestone would actually handcuff you, belly chain you, and shackle you. Then on top of that, they would actually take the bottom of your pants, legs, and take the sleeves on your arms, and then take your waistband, and you was going to stay there until you actually shit 6 times. Now, mind you, you're in the cell by yourself. You cannot do anything because you're actually tied to yourself now. These guys, including myself, when I got there, the only way that we could even eat out of our food, out of our plates that they gave us while we were in the cell was to bend over and eat like a dog. And many of these individuals, unfortunately, when the captain found out that they had me in this condition, he screamed because, he knows good and well I have put me in support out there. And he screamed. He said, hurry up and get him out of that. So they did. But anyhow, I'm watching these, they having to pull guys out that have done literally urinated and shit on themselves and been forced to stay in themselves in their own feces and urine. So, if that's not dehumanizing a man, I don't know what it is.
See, what gets me is, like, in this country, we make such a big deal about, and to some extent, rightfully so, prisoners of war. But then we turn around and we treat our own citizens this way. It's just completely, like, it's ridiculous.
There's no doubt about it, man.
Go ahead.
That right there reminds me. I mean, you just hit it on the nail on the head. You know, the issues over at Guantanamo Bay, and America was uproared about that. You know, and here we are. We have prisoners of war that you say that was, attacking America, blah 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 blah. But yet you more sympathetic for the prisoners of war that you are paying for. I mean, it's just I don't. You funded and pushed for this war, and I don't understand your way of thinking. Okay, one moment you want to destroy Iraq, you want to destroy Afghanistan, you want to destroy all these things, but yet you're more sympathetic for your prisoners. But yet at the same time, you can turn around and do what you do to us without anybody having anything to say about it.
Yeah, my comment. I just think the common consensus among most Americans, especially those the white upper class, is they view prisoners just like people in the 1800s, 1700s view the slaves. They don't see them as humans anymore. Like it's I don't know. Like prison to me is just, it seems like a complete fucking rebranding of the plantation.
I mean, you can't say anybody who tries to argue your point or what you just made. There's nothing they can actually say, man. When you really see the functions and you really understand the historical points of the plantation and of slavery, and you actually look at it to today, you can relate every aspect of what's going on inside these walls to the plantation of the pre-1865, and even post-1865. You look at the convict leasing, the black code laws, and all this and that. You can actually see that in today's system today. Convict leasing. Now you got the work releases. You have all these custody jobs where they're sending these guys out to work at the county jails and the counties and for the state and for the cities and doing all these jobs, and these agencies, governmental agencies, are actually leasing these inmates to do these jobs. And, these could be jobs that somebody out there in the world, here we are suffering from unemployment. These could be jobs for people these citizens out there.
Exactly. No, I was in shock when you were describing the treatment that y'all went through with that bucket detail. I'm still kind of in shock. Like, it's absolutely just sounds fucking disgusting. It sounds worse than what's happening in Guantanamo Bay. Like, probably the only other thing would be waterboarding. Like actual, I don't even know. I'm kind of blown away about how you hear about how bad the prison system is, but firsthand from somebody who's experiencing it now. It's fucking crazy.
Well, I don't know that you could actually say that waterboarding would be the only other thing that we haven't mentioned. What about these officers taking fire extinguishers and spraying guys? We talk about chemical fire extinguishers and spraying these guys in their cells, or even using the chemical mace on these guys. They freely do it. I've seen officers sit there and just spray a handle and watch an inmate touch it and then rub their face, and these things, I've seen so much sadistic stuff go on inside these prisons that it's pathetic. You got officers who use their batons and just beat these individuals not responding fast enough to get on your stomach or whatever it might be during a lockdown, because he might have looked at a woman who was walking down. I mean, come on, man. These things have. I don't know. I don't know if you. I guess I'm gonna have to have my people send this to you. But I know on the YouTube page on her Voices OTCJ, there was a video of one officer, actually two officers, beating a mental patient with their riot sticks, and the last lick that you seen that was done was to the head, like he done hit a home run for a baseball. And what this is on video. This has been put before I, and this has been put before the public, and the sergeant still has his job. I don't get it.
It's disgusting. But like you said in the beginning, I mean, this is what happens when the only person holding you accountable is you. I mean, it just seems like a never-ending loop of a cycle of abuse and neglect, and the only people policing this are the people that are doing it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I can't even give the Department of Justice that much praise, man. Yeah, I mean, it shocked me that William Barr did before he left, go ahead and file a lawsuit. It was a lawsuit that should have been coming years ago. I've been working with the Department of Justice for years now. And, and I've asked them last year in 2019, Mark Williams from the Department of Justice in D.C. while we was doing a protest in Washington, D.C. And I actually had called to check on the protest to see how it was going. It was during the time it was supposed to be ending. And when I did, I called one of my organizers. She was standing in front of the media as well. It was with Mark Williams. And one of the questions that I did when I asked him once we got on speakerphone together, in front of the media, my question was, how many more bodies do you need? And, nobody ever could answer that. Nobody sit there and said, okay, we've had enough bodies show up in the Department of Corrections in Alabama. And their answer came, a year later, after 40-something other individuals had died in the Department of Corrections due to the cause of homicides and murders and overdoses. I mean, 40-something more individuals, which, of course, I know nobody gives a shit about these brothers. Nobody cares, and you don't hear nothing about it too much unless you got the mother or the family members actually raising hell about it. Bless Sandy Ray's heart. She did. She's got a lot of attention behind her son's death at West Jefferson, and I'm thankful for a mother that is willing to get boots on the ground behind that death. But the thing about it is I don't want you to have to wait till something happens to your son or your daughter behind these walls, man. Get boots on the ground now before it happens. That's all I'm asking. Because it's a little too late once your son or your father or your uncle or your grandfather is killed behind these walls.
I also don't think I think that a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to wind up in the prison system. Like obviously we know about the war on drugs and how it's bullshit. And it seems like I was reading somewhere there's so many laws in the books that the average person goes throughout the day committing like 5 felonies without even knowing it. And if you're poor, your risk of getting thrown into the prison system is even worse. You can't afford a good lawyer. You don't have the means to protect yourself. Like, it's crazy. And then people want to treat inmates like shit when why? When you have people in there for nonviolent offenses, and it's just I'm just blown away, kind of what you told us. I'm still kind of in shock about the treatment, but it's crazy.
Nothing. It goes deeper than that, man. You got laws in the state of Alabama that are actually labeled to be violent when they're not even violent. No, there's no victim. There's no harm done to a victim. You have laws that are allowing for juveniles to get life without parole for a nonviolent offense, or should I say a non-death offense. You've got all kinds of things, man, the Habitual Offender Act. The Habitual Offender Act in itself has overcrowded this prison system. The enhancement laws, the way they have enhanced it to actually, you may have a Class C felony, but at the same time, you got enhanced to a Class A felony, which actually turns it to a violent offense. These things, and when you get done and said with it, and a lot of so-called prison reformers out there might get mad at me, but the statistics in the state of Alabama is that the prison system is pretty much overcrowded. At 70% of the overcapacity that we are at, 70% of those are labeled violent offenders. And that in itself says a whole lot. And then one of the things that I've noticed and taking the time out to actually work with some of these guys in their cases, I'm seeing they doing 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years, but yet they're still denied parole after parole. You take an individual like Andre Wallace. Man, Andre Wallace caught his case when he was 16 years old in the 70s. He has a 40-something years built on this, over a 30-something year clear record. Every so-called educational program that they have, every so-called self-helping program that the Department of Corrections has, and they steadily denying this man parole. Why? He is in his 60s now. What threat could this man be now? You have men sitting in these infirmaries during a COVID pandemic that are elderly and dying and in bad health. What could these men do? You have so many individuals in wheelchairs. What can these men do to be harmful to society? There's not much that they could do.
No, not at all. And you bring up a really good point. I really want to ask because obviously the pandemic is on everybody's mind on the inside and the outside. So how is COVID-19 and the pandemic affecting the Alabama prison system?
You know, I couldn't even give you the answer to that because I'm first and foremost, I'm not a doctor. But how many of these brothers, because you know just as well as I know, if you kept up with the Department of Justice reports, that Alabama Department of Corrections is quick to turn around and cover something up as far as the death goes. I mean, I know they reported some of the deaths that to be natural causes in their report when these bodies had holes in them that was not supposed to be in these bodies. So they said it was natural causes. So apparently they got stabbed to death and that was natural causes. So how many of these guys how much COVID-19 has infiltrated these prisons? I don't know. I do have heard plenty of rumors at camps such as Bibb Correctional Facility, Limestone, and Bullock, as well as Kilby Correctional Facility. I've heard many reports that it was high. But at the same time, man, I'm surprised that we haven't had way more deaths. You know, I'm thinking maybe these guys' immune system being in this filthy environment might have helped them. I don't know. It might have built our immune system up to be able to help us. I don't know. But I do suspect that the death toll has been higher than what they've released.
I know we're running a little bit short on time, but I guess the last thing that I had written down was what is the future of this and what's the end game? Like what would you like to see done about everything? Are you like, is it reform or is it abolition? Like what's the end game?
You know, first and foremost, my number one goal is to see slavery abolition. I want to see all forms of slavery abolished, period. And then I want to see true rehabilitation brought inside these prison systems. And man, the overall goal, I think that anybody who fights the fight that we fight, whether it be inside or outside, we would love to see America becoming like other countries and closing these prisons down. And because I think that we need more education, we don't need more prisons. The more that we can educate our young people, the more that we can actually provide for older people out there in the world, and the more stable that we can make our own communities out there without the violence, without the drugs, without any kind of crime, then the more that humanity can evolve in itself. And we won't need to be depending on the need of the prison industrial complex. I think that we need to start looking at countries such as Norway and these other countries that are actually able to close prisons down and send people back out to their communities that are better people. But the first, last but not least, man, I think that we just need to start looking at human beings for being human beings and that their lives are just as important. You know, we hear the chants that all lives matter, black lives matter, brown lives matter, white lives matter, man. But one thing that we are saying in here is confined citizen lives matter. And that is the most important thing that I think that I fight for, is to get back my humanity, man. My past does not define me. These guys' past does not define me. Who are they going to be tomorrow? That's what's going to define them.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. 100%. We're all nodding our heads right now. Before we go, Shaun, before I let you go, is there any last thought? Where can people go to help, to follow what's going on, and to reach out or to do anything to really get the word out?
Man, as you already know, the Free Alabama movement is all over social media. We have outside organizers that run all social media pages. It's on Twitter. Swift Justice Incorporated and supporters is also on social media. They can reach out on Twitter. They can reach out on Facebook, anywhere. But if they want to get a direct contact to inside organizers, it's just going to have to go through our outside organizers, or they can get with our outside organizers, and they can actually write to us on inside the prisons. But they can contact outside organizers through email. They can email us at uvotcj@gmail.com. That is one of our guys who lives in Birmingham. He's also with IWOC Birmingham, and he'll get you in touch with whoever you need to get in touch with. And man, I cannot stress how much more we need the community of fighters, the community of revolutionists to bring into a new 2021, to bring this in big time and to actually get the attention of the people in Alabama. I think it's time for the government to start fearing the taxpayer, not the taxpayer fearing the government, and let the government know, hey, we're fixing to take back this tyrant government that has been established for so many years here in Alabama. We need to see something new.
Hell yeah. If y'all could get up with me, send me anything that y'all would like tagged in the show notes for this, that I can put in the show notes to contact you, whether it be an email or a physical address or anything that you feel would be the best way for people to get up with either you or to get up with anything, like you said, the right inmates to email to anything really. Just so y'all know that there's people on the outside that care about y'all and you're not doing this alone. But I know we're very thankful, Shaun, that you came on. This is definitely probably one of the best, if not the best interview that we've done. We're very
definitely the most important.
Definitely, yeah, hands down the most important. Thank you so much. And I really hope that what you talked about, the end game happens. I hope that you stay safe. I hope that your loved ones stay safe. I hope that everyone on the inside can stay safe. And we're just, from the bottom of our hearts, man, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you for everything that you do. This is a really important cause.
I really appreciate y'all having me, man, and inviting me onto this platform, man. This is just an opportunity for more people to get involved and to actually find out what's going on. And without people like you, man, there's no way that we could do it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaun. I'm gonna do the outro, and then that'll be Tyler's gonna send us off with our catchphrase, and then I think we're gonna call it a night. But like I said, thank you again, Shaun. And as always, at Dixieland, the proletariat, we believe the South will rise again, but this time for the right reasons, those being worker-owned means of production, decolonization, and self-determination for all oppressed peoples. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on social media at dixieprole. We are coming to you from the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement, Montgomery, Alabama. We'd also like to recognize that we're recording on occupied land that rightfully belongs to the Muskogee Nation, and we are definitely a 100% prison abolitionist podcast. We want to end slavery in all forms, and we love to just, once again, Shaun, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope that people at home enjoy this. Tyler, you want to send us off?
Yeah. Well, good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. We'll see y'all next time, and let's fucking abolish slavery for real this time.
Fuck yeah.
Hell yeah. I like that.